look like for the Jewish community if those mainstream institutions don't hold sway quite the same way? And what's going to happen on those issues? Let's talk about Israel and power that were really so critically important for the American Jewish success story.
We've had a long era of a kind of common core set of tenets for the American Jewish community, one of which is Israel, the second is sort of general Jewish identification and peoplehood, and those are actually in controversy now. I'm not sure that there's going to be 3 or 4 set values that are going to be exactly identical, that replace or continue what was before. I think that what we're going to have is a situation in which we slowly inch towards a set of family resemblances, right? Common enough, where we know that we're in the same universe, the same ball game, that we're talking to one another, even if we're not signed on the dotted line.
But isn't it also a challenge for the State of Israel, which is still holding together not on the basis of a notion of family resemblance, but is kind of derives from the whole notion of Jewish peoplehood, that the Jewish people are a people and therefore a nation and therefore deserving of a nation state like every other people's?
I think there is such a thing as Jewish peoplehood, and Israel expresses its right to self-determination. But what we saw in America is something subtly different. What we saw is the turning of the notion of peoplehood into a religion. That's a different sort of concept of peoplehood than the State of Israel is based on.
And can those two things co-inhabit? In other words, if the American Jewish community is around that
They have been co-inhabiting for a very, very long time, but they don't have to co-inhabit in the same way. So ideas about peoplehood morph and change over time. And I think we're at a moment in the story of American Jewry in which it's changing its resonance a little.
You've described the situation for Jews in North America as emerging towards this notion of family resemblance. Within that model, how does a view that rejects the legitimacy of the State of Israel or takes that whole big Jewish peoplehood project and says, we don't want to be a part of it, can the Jewish community sustain is that a legitimate stance, right, as one of these subgroups might say? Do they stay part of this network of family resemblances, or are there certain core issues that if you don't identify with, you've lost too much of the family resemblance?
We have to distinguish between people who will not and don't want to subscribe to what has been until now a normative view that if you're Jewish, you need to be supporting Israel because that's part of the kind of peoplehood religion. Right? And I think if one does not ascribe to support for Israel as a normative view, meaning that that is a kind of quasi-religious principle, that's okay. There are groups that have historically made up the tapestry of Judaism, including various Haredi groups that don't subscribe to the notion of Zionism as a normative principle. On the other hand, the creation of Israel as the expression of the cultural, spiritual, and political life of Jews today is one of the great historical experiments in our time. And I feel bad for people who are taking themselves out of it and failing to participate.